All right, welcome all. This is one of those topics that I was curious whether it would be all right to do. It's one of those one of the subjects where people ask, can Backdrop do this? Well, of course it can, because Drupal could do it. So setting up Solr locally with Backdrop in Lando. I'm Justin Keiser. I'm officially a Drupal web programmer for the Academy of Model Aeronautics in Muncie, Indiana. I'm Keiser JB all over the internet. I work at the International Aero Modeling Center, which is 1,000 acres of area for our members to come fly their model airplanes. I was outside looking at them today. That wasn't for last year, but that was sitting out there today, and I didn't get to hear it fly, but trust me, it sounds like a real jet, because it is. And this was apparently the model that won their scale modeling national competition, the B25 model. But apparently they don't get to fly it during their competition because it's just on display for everyone to look at. Why Solr? Since I first started going to Drupal camps, I heard the word Solr and I had absolutely no idea what it was. But everybody talked about using it. So it's a Java-based search application that you can enable full text search with, that is much faster than the core search module. And you can do fun things like add stop words and synonyms to the search configuration, so you can eliminate it searching for a, and the, and you can set up synonyms for it where someone types one word and the search results bring up the word that you want people to find. So I'm interested because I have a Drupal 9 site that runs 6 Solr cores. One of these indexes about 1 million records. So when I turn it on, it takes like 3 days to index. It's quite wonderful. But I only do that locally because I don't mess with the live site with the member directory and 1 million records. I'm also interested in it because on that Drupal site, we have a Google custom search application that searches all of our websites and returns results. And some of the websites it searches, we don't have anymore. And not all of the websites we actually have are in the custom search. And I want to eventually replace this. I want to replace it with some kind of federated search, because when I was at Florida Drupal Camp in 2019, I saw this really cool presentation on federated search with Drupal, Solr, and React. And I liked it a lot. I liked the idea of it, but I didn't have a reason to use it. But I also need this. If I do this, I need it to work with Backdrop and WordPress too. And also, I was a librarian before I became a full-time web developer. So I have a master's degree in library and information science. So organizing information and then searching for it is kind of something that I'm into. So working with Solr Search kind of fits that little need. So in order to make this work, you of course need Lando running a Backdrop site locally. You need an API module and the Solr Search module. Optionally, you can use the Facet API module, and there is another Search API module that I discovered in Drupal called Search API Attachments that I kind of ported. What the Search API Attachments can do is that if you have a site with a bunch of PDFs, it will actually, instead of just searching like the title of the PDF, it will search full text search the contents of the PDF and return results based on what is inside the PDF. So to begin with, when I was searching for this, I found an old set of instructions for running Search API Solr with Umami on Drupal 8. So I followed these instructions and set up this test site with Umami. And that took me a really long time the first time because I didn't know what I was doing, but we got it going. And then I kind of put it away for a long time. And I decided that I really should make the Drupal 9 site work. But there's 6 Solr cores, which is quite different from the test installation with Umami. So I took a look at those instructions and I effectively did the same thing for Backdrop. So a very simple Lando file. Under services, you just add a service for search and say Solr 7, you name your core. That's important because you have to put it in the configuration in the UI of the site. And as long as my Solr configuration is actually in modules/search _ API _ Solr /Solr -conf, it works. So I run my Lando rebuild, whatnot, and the site spins up with a URL for the Solr. So you install the module, turn on the module, and then there is a menu item under configuration search. There will be search API, and you need to set up a server and an index. You go in and edit the server, name your server. Doesn't really matter what you name it here. I'm doing it locally, so I used HTTP. The Solr host is what you called the service, the search service under services. So if I called search like Backdrop, my Solr host would be Backdrop. And then it automatically spins up on port 8983. You can change that in the Lando file if you want to. And the part that was slightly confusing was the Solr path. Because in the Drupal 9 module, there's actually 2 fields for that. There's Solr path, and then there's the name of the core. So I didn't quite know what that meant the first time I tried to configure this, but it worked out that I just had to put Solr /Backdrop. And then it found the server. So then I needed to create the search index. I was trying to get the server to load on the site. So I can show this first. So where it says the connection, the Solr server could be reached. I struggled a few times getting that configuration correctly, so it actually said it could be reached. But once I figured out what to put in there, Solr /Backdrop, then it was all good. Now, when you're configuring the search index, under the data source options and the bundles, you can only configure that here. You can't change it afterwards. So if you select that you only want to index pages, if you want to then index pages plus posts, you're going to have to go back and recreate the search index. So I just set it up unrestricted. And then comes the next step, which you need to select the fields that you want to index. So it looks like this. This is This is a completed search index. But up at the top here, there's fields. So you want to select, well, definitely I want to index my body text, because that's the most important thing. And in order, I also have my taxonomy terms indexing. In order to get that, you have to open up this add related fields and say, oh, I want to add tags. And then it will add the fields up here, up at the top, so you can actually select them. Let's go back.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Can you, instead of indexing the field values, can you index the rendered content, like what you see on the page instead?
You can definitely do that in Drupal 9. Seems like you should be able to. With Drupal 7 or Backdrop, but I don't see it displaying in the same way. Because there was a field that actually said rendered.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't like using it, because where I was using it was with the PDFs after I installed search API attachments, and it would display the wall of text, everything that was in the PDF, instead of just displaying an excerpt.
Hmm.
If anybody knows about that, feel free to pop in. So continuing on the selections up here, the next step is setting up filters. So the instructions that I had said to always use bundle filter, which means that you can separate your search index out after the fact by content type and which vocabulary that you're wanting to index. And then node access, because you don't want to have, oh, I need to check unpublished nodes. That's what I was going to. You don't want to search to index unpublished content, or have folks be able to access things through search that they couldn't normally see. That's what the node access one is for. And then the important one under processors is the highlighting. Because what that will do is it will highlight the word that you searched for in the search results. After that runs, after you set those things up and you index your content, then you have to make a view to display your search results. So when you set up your view, you use the name of the search index. This is something that was slightly different from Drupal 9 too. So under what I want to show, I'm going to show my default node index, was because that's what I labeled my Solr search index as. And you can't change that afterwards because you're creating a view. I always wanted to select search index because I'm creating a search index, but that didn't work. And then we test the search to see if it works. I guess we could look at the view a little bit more. So I'm adding the title that I indexed, the search excerpt that that was created by checking the highlighting box. And then I'm creating a full text search box. And I decided to limit my results in the view to only my article content type, rather than change what was indexed or what was set up on the server. Then I get the search relevance. I sort the results by relevance. So I have the most relevant results at the top. And this is a local version of a working site, but there's like 10 years of magazine content in here. So I can search for helicopters and find all of the magazine articles that were put in the site about helicopters, which is helpful because we couldn't necessarily do that before. My brainstorm about this was, after I set this up, I thought, well, I have 10 years of magazine article content in this site, but the articles themselves don't have any taxonomy terms on them. There's no tag field. So if I did want to create a link somewhere on the site that went to all of the articles about helicopters, or all of the article about aerobatics, or all of the articles about control line, or all of the articles about scale, I couldn't do that. So the brainstorm came when I thought, well, why don't I just add views bulk operations to the view with my Solr results? And then I can search for these items and find the most relevant articles, and then use views of bulk operations to add taxonomy terms to the articles. So I created a second view to be able to do that. So let's see, scale. And it looks kind of funky because my table is running into my sidebar. But say I could select, just for an example, the top 3, and I can modify the entity values for those articles, and I can say, add the scale tag to all 3 of those things. This site actually isn't in Backdrop yet. The live site is in Drupal 7. And I've obviously test migrated it, or test upgraded it, but I'm doing a lot of things to it to sort of try and clean up the content and make the site more usable in the end when it actually does move to Backdrop, because I have no time pressure to do it. I still have a year to do this. So I'm wanting to make it like adding these taxonomy terms to the articles, and doing things like adding author fields to the magazine articles, and then associating the articles that everybody wrote with the author on author pages, and all sorts of things that just, and adding fields for the issue that the magazine issue the article was in. And those things, I can't do those things on the live site. So I'm just playing around a lot, and Solr became part of it.
Could I also ask, how did you get the tag list in the sidebar, like that exposed
That's coming
vector
with
tag list?
facets.
Okay, yeah. Sorry,
That's
I
coming
jumped
with
in it.
facets. I discovered that there was actually a bug in core for the taxonomy module where you weren't, that was failing when I was trying to add the taxonomy terms with the views bulk operations. What it was doing was I'd have a list of 50 articles and I wanted to add the same taxonomy term to all 50 articles. Well, instead of creating the taxonomy term once, it would create it 50 times in the structure taxonomy tags. So it was awful. I ended up deleting all of them and starting over. I thought the first comment in the issue queue about the bug 10 years ago on Drupal.org was fascinating. Like, I'm gonna put everything now. Wow, that's just stupid. But there was kind of a hacky way to fix it in the issue queue. So I solved the problem, but it's not the right way. Now we're going to talk about the facets. This worked pretty different in Backdrop and Drupal 7 for Drupal 9. So inside, when you install the search API module, inside the search API, there's something called search facets. So you turn that one on, but you also have to install a module called Facet API. You turn that guy on and go back to setting up the node index, and that's where you add the taxonomy terms. And oh, wonderful, my search index has disappeared. That happens. Oh, it's because they changed something. We'll see if it re-indexes flawlessly. I kind of doubt it. But to add the taxonomy term field, my tags field, you might think that you just need to click this field tags right here, but that won't work. You got to scroll down to the bottom and open up the add related fields and click on tags, and then it adds all of these other available fields. And the important one is tags name, field tags name. Save the changes, do a re-index. And then once you turn on the search facets and the facet API, there's going to be a selection up here for in the menu for facets. And you select that, oh, I want to add a facet for the taxonomy term names and save the configuration. Let's go back and see if my search index re-indexes. Sometimes this craps out, but I've got another site that we can look at but it's not the real site.
So conceptually there, before you can add a facet on something, you need to make sure that you're indexing it first.
Yes, you need to index the field that you want to create a facet for.
Totally.
And every time you select or change a field that you want indexed, you have to re-index, which if you have more than 2,000 records, could take a while. If it was like the the search index on the Drupal 9 site that had 1 million records in it, I wouldn't want to change my fields every day.
Have you noticed any difference in indexing speed on the Drupal 9 site versus the Backdrop site? I mean, it sounds like they're different scales, so it might be hard to
They're
compare
different
them.
scales, but this is probably faster. Backdrop is probably faster. And I haven't done a Drupal site other than the big site that isn't just test content that I've created with Devel. So I really don't have something to directly compare it to. I might, when I upgrade a D7 site to a D9 site, and I want to put Solr on it.
Oh, while we're waiting, I also had another question. What's the reason for like 6 Solr cores? Is that purely like a scaling thing or
I
what?
don't know. It was that I like the agency that built it. I haven't ever asked that question. They all do different things.
Oh,
So there's one for indexing the member directory, and there's one for indexing all of the clubs, and then there's one for indexing the events, and there's another one for site search that doesn't really get used.
huh.
And there's
That,
another one for indexing hobby shops that we don't really use anymore. So it's probably down to like 4.
well, it sounds kind of like they set up a separate Solr instance instead of separate indexes almost. Like, isn't that
I
sounds like
I knowing what I know now, I would probably try to do it with separate indexes. You
yeah,
would use the one server and do it with separate indexes.
huh.
The indexing worked. Yay. So inside the facets, there is a configure display. So you can change the way it displays from links to links with checkboxes. You can alter how many are going to display. You can change the sort of what is displaying. Like the count is the number of articles that has that taxonomy term in the parentheses taxonomy term. And I honestly haven't messed with any of this. I've just kept it at the default in the past. So what this does is it creates a block for you. So then in Drupal land, you go add the block on the blocks, structure blocks, but we don't do that because we have layouts. And it's like a smart block. It automatically only shows up where it's supposed to. I ended up using the layout wildcard module to create a layout just for the Solr search. So my default layout only has one sidebar, but I wanted the Solr search to have 2 sidebars because I wanted the facets to show up on the left and then the right-hand side to be like it is everywhere else. So you place the facet API block that you created when you enabled facets where you want it to appear. And then it's going to appear on the search result page with the available taxonomy terms. It might be easier to look at the built out Devel content. So if I search for an Ipsum text, this one's on the right, but this filter by tags is not going to show up on any other page but a search result page. And you don't have to add any visibility restrictions in the layout. I will say that there's one thing I haven't been able to figure out. with those, with the facets. They get truncated. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't
saw
want
that.
them to be truncated.
Instead of helicopter, it was like helicopter.
Right.
Yeah.
I kept looking in the menu for the configure display to say, don't truncate it. But it didn't seem like it was truncating it with the devel generated content, but it clearly is on the real site. So I want to figure that out because I don't want it to say helicopter. But this is far from production anyway. So, and the other thing I'd like to figure out is what exactly this relevance number means. Like, what is 30.2040401? I want it to be a percentage of like this is not this 95% matches your search.
Just as a guess, and I have no idea if this is accurate, but um, it might have something to do with the stemmer plugin, that it's removing the ER from helicopter, because that it's like going to the base of the word. And so it's like, so it's not actually truncating the word, it's stemming it. I don't know, just guess.
Yes. Okay, wait, hold on. There was, let's see if that's a selection in here. Because there was a, nope. But that is let's turn this on. Wait for that to turn on. Because in this dropdown where you're searching full text, there is actually in the D9 version, there's like a full text stemmed selection, but that's not here.
Maybe
So
that's
that
it.
was familiar to me.
This tag's name that you've got here, the type is full text. Maybe that should be string instead, so that it's the whole thing.
Let's see if it changes.
Yeah, of course,
Now
now you're gonna have to re-index, right?
I'm gonna have to re-index it again.
And sorry if this is totally derailing.
It's not. But I was almost through the slides anyway. While we re-index it. Yeah, we talked about this. The only thing I have really left to talk about is the search API attachments. So let's go kick off that re-indexing. But this is all still real new to me because I don't know how any of this stuff works. I've been clicking around a lot and trying a lot of things. When I was first faced with the Drupal site that had Solr, I looked at the views that were displaying the Solr and they all said this content data source under the fields that were displaying, and I had no idea what that meant. And I was very confused until I got it running locally, and then it started to make sense to me. Well, that's gone. I want to talk about the search API attachments because I think it's really cool. I wish I could get the module to work all the way, which maybe I'll revisit it and get it to work all the way. But I ran it through Coder Upgrade, turned the module on, everything ground to a halt when I turned on the Drupal site. So I'm going to turn it back off. Ah, let's reindex. Okay, search API attachments. So I ran this recoder upgrade. I put it in my modules folder. I turned it on, and I had the settings menu, which is awesome. Didn't error when I turned it on. So I had found more instructions online about how to search PDFs in Drupal with Apache Tika. No idea what Apache Tika was, but it pointed me toward search API attachments. It didn't explain how to use the built-in Solr extraction method, which is considerably easier than the Tika method, because I don't have to worry about installing Apache Tika in my Lando as well as my Solr. So the built-in Solr is how I tried to set up the Backdrop version. And there was really nothing to it. I kept all the default settings. I saved the configuration. And then I re-indexed my content because I had some PDFs in there. And the indexing failed. Got an error message. It was something about, it was checking for size of the file that it was indexing, and Backdrop didn't like how Drupal did it. So I commented that line out temporarily in the code, ran the index again, and it worked. And this is cool, because in this test node here, I've just got test, and it's something called test PDF. And there's one word in it. There's blurg. So if this was just searching the title of the node and the contents of the node, there's no way that would come up as a search result. And it does. I've got a full PDF of a magazine in here. So I can search for Corsair, which is World War II fighter plane. And it brings up the April 2020 issue of Model Aviation. Now, what that doesn't do, which would be the cooler user experience, is it doesn't go to that part of the PDF that actually has that word in it. But it did actually bring that up, which it wouldn't have done without that experimental module.
It can't do the little excerpt snippet thing.
I actually had gotten it to do the excerpt. I don't know what happened to it. Or maybe I only had gotten that to work in Drupal 9. Don't remember now, but I have seen it work.
Yeah, that's great. So you didn't end up needing to use Tika or whatever. It was just, this is just Solr.
This is just Solr. You don't have to use the Tika. Tika might be better, but the module does not work. The Backdrop version of the module currently does not work with Tika because it won't find it. And I don't know about the other selections in the module, like this PDF to text. I haven't tried to use that ever in Drupal or Backdrop, so I don't know if it works or not. I have gotten the Tika to work in Drupal, it's kind of a complicated process to get it in the Lando file to run it up locally. I found instructions on this too, and the Lando instructions definitely did not work. And I spent like an afternoon screwing with it, trying to find what to actually do. So it goes under app server as extras in the Lando file. And this is going to download a bunch of stuff, and it installs Tika in the backdrop exactly like it does in Drupal, but there's something messed up in the experimental module that it doesn't actually find it.
Yeah, it's probably a
Search
little
index.
hard to tell if it's like, is it a Lando thing, or is it a module thing? Like, is it in the server or is it not? Yeah, it's always a little hard to tell.
Let's see if it truncates. No, it doesn't truncate. Thank you. You fixed it.
All right. Well, maybe we should just change that label then. Maybe that's what the Drupal version did, is just clarified, you know, string versus full text. Like, it would be helpful to know that it's going to stem the full text version. Yay, that's great. I, I'm also just really surprised. First of all, I didn't even know Search API was ported for Backdrop, so that's great. Um, and on top of that, I'm impressed, surprised that um, Search API attachments, which hadn't been ported, you ran through coder upgrade, and that's it. Like, it worked after that.
There were slight tweaks after that, but it was actually not bad.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
great.
like there were like a couple things that I had to change after I ran it through coder upgrade, and it started working.
Yeah, excellent.
That's that coder upgrade. That's the only kind of ports that I do. So, if it doesn't mostly work after I do that, I'm like, I don't know what to do now. Any other questions? Anybody gonna go off and install Solr on their Backdrop site in production now?
I'm definitely going to test it in staging. It's the search that's in core. I keep running up against some issues with it with users, and of course, for those of us that are on our side of the equation, it's easy. Oh, why don't you do this? But when you're dealing with anonymous users, you can't control what they do. And I've been trying to really find a way to have like these fuzzy Google-like searches that they can just do and come up with at least some results that give them something that they would expect back. And this definitely looks like a move forward. So I mean, I appreciate all the time you put into this, and definitely I'm like, all right, I see a way forward for what I need to do, that's going to solve some problems. And obviously, like you said, not something you want to necessarily throw into a production site, but it doesn't seem like it's that far off, to be quite honest.
Oh, I would use the Solr search and the facets in a live site, no problem. I probably wouldn't put my attachments module on it.
Yeah, just generally, like I speaking to what Brian just said, I'd love it if the core search did work better. Yeah, I feel like it's been highly neglected for decades almost. Like the core search hasn't changed in Backdrop or Drupal in a very long time, and like it would be nice if it just worked better. Like the concept of it, like how it creates a search index and the index makes separate tables, and then the indexing all works fine, but like just the actual interface for showing results and everything like that is all not good. And I don't like how it segments users versus nodes. Like it separates them by entity type. Like lots of silly things in the way that it's done. But there's always going to be a place for search API, even if core search gets better, because things like this PDF search, like core would never do that. So it's pretty incredible to see this all working together. Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that it would be nice if you didn't have to go to Solr so quickly, you know, like, but I think that that's been like the default assumption is that don't even bother with core search, just go right to Solr.
Well, it never searched the actual contents of the node. To me, it only searched like the titles.
Oh, well, that would be a big problem. Yeah, it should do. Oh, well, maybe if you're talking about like the admin/content search, that's only searching the titles for sure. But like the actual like /search page. You also can, I think maybe also what might have confused you at 1.2 when you were in the views setup. I think
Mhm.
that search index actually is core search index.
Oh,
And so you can, and this is a difference when Drupal 8 ported views, they removed the search index from views, which is still in Backdrop and is still usable. So you can actually set up a view to use core search that works way better than the normal /search page that uses a search index table combined with views to like make something kind of like search APIs listings, but it still doesn't have facets, which is, highly useful. So
and I like the facets the way it's smart. It only shows up where it's supposed to show up
yeah,
automatically.
yeah, I like how you how you set up a layout for your search page. That seems like that's a really smart move too.
But it does require the layout wildcard to add it to more than one URL.
To have the same, yeah, totally. Yeah, I think I see a lot of sites. I'm not actually sure which way to go on um, setting up a lot of pages that it looks like possibly what you did is you set up the view was a page display and then you added the
Yes.
layout on top of it, as opposed to the alternative to that, which is you create a layout and then you create a block and then you place the block within the layout page. And like, I'm not sure which way, is actually better.
It would probably be better the block way in Backdrop, but the instructions that I had that I followed out there always said page because that's the way you did it in Drupal.
Yeah,
So I didn't
totally.
try it with block.
Yeah, because you only have one global set of placements in Drupal, so of course you wouldn't want to block because then, yeah, what would provide the page? Like there would be no route, there'd be no path other than the view in the world of Drupal. But in Backdrop, yeah, you can make that a layout. Well, Justin, this is really great, and honestly, I can just see that dozens or hundreds of hours that it probably took just kind of like bumping into dead ends and then like trying to figure out a way around it. So I think this will be an enormous time saver for people following in your footsteps to get the same thing accomplished. Yeah, this is really great, and thank you for sharing.
No problem.
It doesn't it this is one of those things that's like you don't need it until you do, and then it's going to be really helpful to have this resource.
I'm interested in trying it with Elasticsearch too, but I don't. I also don't know anything about that, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'd like the thing that bothers me most about Solr is the black box that is the configuration of Solr itself. It's all XML files and some kind of schema thing, and I don't understand how
Yeah,
any of that works.
let's,
But it sounds like, it looks like from what you did is that like there's already a schema file that was written for Drupal 7 and you just said, yeah, use that, and that seemed to work.
well, it's inside the module.
Yeah.
Let's go back to,
Yeah, every time I've wanted to see Solr do something like advanced, like the answer is like, oh, well, it's in your schema file. I'm like, I don't know
yeah,
what
it's in
that
this
does.
guy.
Yeah.
You can alter this to make it do whatever you want. And I mentioned stop words and synonyms. Like you just add words in this text file.
Oh, that seems simple.
Here's the one for model aircraft. It's got a lot of stuff in it. No, search API Solr.
Seems kind of like it. Oh, I see. There's only 7.x in there. Seems like probably, yeah, like this stuff's 6, 7, 8. Seems kind of like that stuff should probably be consolidated or renamed to a backdrop namespace.
Where'd it go? Maybe it's in here.
The schema.xml, is that not it? Under 7.x.
Oh yeah, that's it. But I was looking for the stop words file.
Mm.
Maybe I deleted it in my moving things around in the local site. I don't know. There used to be one there. I'll fix it someday. In the Drupalize me, there were explanations, instructions on how to alter this file, the schema. But yes, it was slightly complicated to wrap your head around at the beginning, but I think I could probably get it because it seems like librarian stuff.
Oh, you mean just like the vocabulary and the words that they use? You're like, oh yeah, I know what these words mean.
It seems like yeah, this is kind of how the library catalog sort of worked behind everything. So I don't know, perhaps
Yeah,
that'll
excellent.
be stage
Excellent.
2, like understanding that.
Okay, well, looks like we're out of time. Thanks again, Justin, and big applause from
Yeah, thanks,
ourselves.
Justin. That was really interesting.
All right, well, great. Well, we'll close out the session, and yeah, we'll go back to the main room. Thanks so much again.
Awesome. Thank you.